I am joined today by Arun. I think this is Arun's first customer webinar, so everybody welcome him. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Arun and I'm working with Webgility's implementation team. And day in, day out, I happen to interact with a lot of e-commerce business owners. So I'm happy to be here to talk about this topic that we have today.
Awesome. Yeah, and as I always say, I love having the implementation team on these. I'm happy to do these myself if need be, but having the implementation team here means that like you guys work with customers every single day and understand, the things that customers run into on a day-to-day basis, the issues they have with, their accounting flow and Webgility in general. So you guys can speak to it a little better than I can. I mean, the last time I was in an implementation was 4.5, 5 years ago at this point. So I've been out of that game for a little bit. But for those of you who don't know me, I am the engagement manager here for Webgility. My name is John May. I've been with Webgility for almost 6 years now. Time kind of flies, but I have worked in e-commerce for a pretty long time, even outside of my professional life. So I'm also happy to talk through this topic today. And that topic is order posting. So the agenda for today is pretty light on the surface. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about order types specifically, mostly because there are so many different types. We want to kind of explain how they work within the framework of WebGility, when you might use them, and what's recommended specifically for a WebGility workflow. Then we'll get into the difference between single and group posting. This is something that we've talked about pretty regularly on some of the other sessions, just when you should use transactional versus consolidated posting. We'll talk through sort of at the end classes, deposit accounts, and customer types. Those are all pretty straightforward conversations, just specifically what WebGility recommends, how WebGility works with those. And then we'll end before the Q&A. We'll have Arun go in and sort of demo all these concepts, where to find, the ability to change your order posting type, where to, change from single to group posting and what that affects, and then all the other settings that are mentioned here. So at the very end, we'll end with a Q&A. But before we dive into the actual content, if you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to ask them. I renamed this session office hours for a specific reason. I don't want this to be just like a canned, set topic that we talk about and that's all we talk about and we don't cover anything else. If you guys have questions, even outside of the realm of order posting, if you have questions specific to your WebGility account, just really anything regarding WebGility, feel free to ask those questions in either the webinar chat or the question and answer box. If it's something that we cannot answer in that moment, because we're maybe talking, there's something on the slide, we might save it for when there's a breath. If it's something that we can't answer because it's very specific to your account, like maybe something's not working correctly, you're getting an error, that's not a problem. We will follow up with you after the webinar and have somebody schedule a call with you to make sure that we're fixing that issue for you. So anything is on the table. Nothing is, not allowed, I guess, for the most part. But yeah, just to get started, order posting types. So anybody that's worked in e-commerce or accounting or in retail or any type of business knows that there's different, types of orders. And the way that WebGility works with them is pretty straightforward. We have a specific set of recommendations for the most common types of orders. So we'll start off with the most recommended. And when I say most recommended, that doesn't mean that it's the end all be all. It just means for people that are using Shopify and Amazon or have wholesale B2B orders, this is the one that we recommend the most in certain circumstances. So when it comes to invoices, there's the unpaid and paid types of invoices. Unpaid invoice means that you haven't been paid for that good or service, right? So you're sending the customer an invoice, and you want to record that invoice in QuickBooks for whatever reason, right? Like if it's because the payment needs to be received later, if the goods are already shipped or fulfilled, if accounts receivable tracking is required, that's a big one here. Or inventory needs to be reduced immediately, even if you haven't been paid for the product. So, use unpaid invoices specifically when the customer still needs to pay, and you still need to create the accounts receivable record, I'll say. So One other thing, this session always recorded. We'll send the recording out, but you'll also get the slide deck that's presented here. So if you don't want to have to watch back the recording, you can review all of these slides, specifically the use cases for these order types, because I know it's a lot of information. There's some nuance to some of these, so that you can always review these and get it at a glance. But yeah, unpaid invoices are best for people that use wholesale, use net terms like net 30, net 60, and need that future payment collection. If you know what an invoice is, this isn't news to you. This is a pretty straightforward application. But the accounting impact that it creates in QuickBooks is it, again, creates that accounts receivable record. It immediately reduces inventory. And again, that payment is applied later. So now we'll switch it up a little bit and go to paid invoices if you want to take this one over.
Yeah, thank you, John. So, invoices are always like two-step process, and John already spoke about the first one, which is the unpaid. The next step, the second is invoices paid. It is essentially when you have collected the payment at the time of the order being sold, and it is essentially the complete transaction. You have taken the payment, you are recording the payment as invoice paid, and the inventory is also adjusted for it. It is usually best for businesses migrating from traditional invoicing and also for retail businesses needing to provide the invoice reporting. Then the impact on accounting. Invoices and payments, as mentioned, they are recorded at the same time, and there is no open receivable item left beyond this point. It is when we are configuring it's the Amazon stores and Shopify stores where we receive the payouts. We generally suggest or recommend using invoices unpaid. And at the time when the payout is being posted to your QuickBooks, Webgility is smart enough to collect the payments and convert all those unpaid invoices to paid invoices so that you don't have to do manually for each and individual order. So that was about paid invoices, John. We can now next speak about sales receipt.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the important context here, just to like tie paid versus unpaid back together, is to kind of hit home on that last point that you made that Webgility can convert the unpaid to paid. So there generally isn't going to be a point where in Webgility you're telling Webgility to create paid invoices because the flow should be that you're creating unpaid invoices, the customer pays them, we get the payment, and then convert it to a paid invoice on posting in QuickBooks. So it kind of follows the flow from unpaid invoices, which is nice. But the most common posting type is one that everybody should be familiar with is the sales receipt. It only has a paid option because generally a sales receipt means that the customer paid at checkout, right? So this is especially applicable for people that use point of sale. Point of sale only uses sales receipts. But it applies for common like retail setups as well, like Shopify and Amazon. If the customer's paying at checkout, they're generally going to use sales receipts. So the good thing about sales receipts is that all of the information that comes with that order gets posted immediately when the sales receipt gets posted. So things like the inventory get deduced or deducted from QuickBooks immediately. The payment processing fees, any of the additional fees that come with that order on the sales receipt all get posted alongside of it. So this is especially useful when payments collected at checkout, like I said, that you when you don't need accounts receivable tracking. If you're using Shopify Retail, Amazon Marketplace, or point of sale at like a normal basic level, you don't have any like complex, again, invoice-based accounting flows set up. And it's recommended when payment reconciliation is done directly in QuickBooks. That is sort of the again most common setup that we see. So where the invoice unpaid is the most recommended setup that we give people, it's probably most recommended because we sort of push people to that when they get to a certain point if they're using B2B or wholesale. The sales receipt is the default option. So when you boot up Webgility for the first time, it's always going to be defaulted to sales receipt. That doesn't mean that you need to use sales receipt if you have an invoicing or like net payment option that you need to use, then that's always able to be changed too. But sales receipt is the default. The accounting impact is that everything's recorded instantly from the income to the payment. Again, no accounts receivable is created because it's done and done, right? And it's the simplest, most straightforward workflow. So if you've worked with sales receipts before, there's the ability to customize what shows up on the sales receipt from a like data notes standpoint, but it's pretty on rails. There's not a lot that can go wrong with it. You don't have to worry about, things happening in arrears or happening down the line. It's a snapshot of that transaction that happened at checkout, basically. So pretty straightforward. And then if you want to take sales order.
Yeah. So with regards to, just want to quickly add on to the point of sales receipt, John.
Mhm.
When I speak with a lot of business owners who happen to operate via Shopify or Amazon, again after having a thorough discussion that what Webgility can additionally offer help and assistance with the reconciliation part that becomes very important for all of the business owners. So it makes more sense for them to switch to invoices, unpaid and then paid workflow. I mean, after a thorough discussion, most of the business owners, they prefer that workflow. Not that sales receipt is something inferior, but it's just about the preferences.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense. Um, I mean, even just looking at the fact that sales receipt is the simplest workflow, simple doesn't
Yeah.
mean better in a lot of cases, right? Simple just means that there's not a lot to, worry about in terms of making sure that things are custom built to your workflow. Whereas invoicing gives you a lot more control, right? You have a lot more control over the flow of data and segmentation. So yeah, I think that makes sense. I think some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about as well when it comes to like batch posting or single order posting sort of follows that same logic too. So that's a good call out.
Yeah. All right, so now let's talk about sales order. So in accounting practices, this is usually an order commitment document, not the final accounting transaction. And it is often used for operational workflow. So it is usually preferred when order must be reviewed before the shipment or inventory should not reduce yet at the time of, inquiring or producing the sales order. It is best for the business owners which have made to order businesses, custom orders, and back orders or pre-order workflows. And one of the important behavior when we are dealing with sales order is that the inventory remains on hold. It does not get impacted. Does not get reduced the moment you are creating sales order. Once you have the confirmation from your end customer, then you can convert that sales order into invoice, and pretty much the workflow remains the same moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. So sales orders aren't something that is generally impacted by Webgility, right? It's something that happens before an actual order or an actual transaction confirmation takes place, right? And estimates are very similar in this way, right? So estimates are a price quote. It's an estimate. I'm sure everybody here has, made an estimate or, heard of an estimate at the very least. But providing a price quote before confirming the sale, right? You need customer approval for it to proceed from an estimate. That's the whole purpose of an estimate. And then the final product quantity or pricing might change after that estimate, right? So it's sort of that preamble to the transaction. Estimates are best for custom manufacturing, project-based, or service and product bundles, negotiation in B2B or business to business, and then high-value custom orders. So again, this is not affected by Webgility. This does not route through Webgility in any way. Generally, you would do these outside of Webgility, and then when they do turn into an actual transaction, like an invoice, unpaid or paid, or a sales receipt, then you would see the information flow through Webgility. But this is, again, sort of a precursor to the actual transaction. It's just good to know when you might be able to use them as a business to take advantage of, better workflow transparency, better segmentation of your data. At the end of the day, all of these different types of orders have a place in your workflow. It just depends on how you take advantage of them or if you even need to. The accounting impact on or from estimates is going to be that it's a non-posting transaction. It does not get posted to QuickBooks. It does not affect income, inventory, or accounting in any way because again, it is just a sort of an agreement based posting or I guess order type. And then it's purely for sales planning and approval. So it's just to make sure that you have the right approval and planning process so that you can have a paper trail to track what the customer wants and fulfill what they need in a timely manner. So um, now let's talk about single versus group posting if you want to explain sort of what that means, Arun.
Yes. So it totally depends on the nature of the business and the frequency of the orders that one person is receiving. So talking about single order posting means every order is sent to QuickBooks separately, which gives detailed records and easier customer level tracking and stronger product level reporting. So if it is generally preferred by the business owner who have high ticket size and less frequency of orders coming in, generally about in the range of up until 200 orders on a single day. But when the order volumes tends to go higher, then it is recommended to post them as a group or consolidated posting. So what group posting means is that multiple orders are combined into one accounting entry for a day, which basically reduces accounting clutter and is useful when there are many small orders, right? So one of our, daily life concern that I talk to the business owners and I learn from them is that, the QuickBooks file gets bigger and bigger in size, and sometimes it gets choppier while working on that. And after having this discussion of how the order can be posted, they can be grouped as well. I happen to consult them, and they actually followed that advice, and which eventually reduces their QuickBooks company file size on a longer term, because you are posting all of the orders for the day in one single report, right? And a thumb rule that I would say is a single posting is for detail and group posting is for efficiency. Webgility has both the option. It can post single orders and we can also group the orders on the basis of frequency. We can do it daily, we can do it weekly or monthly, whichever is feasible for the customers.
Yeah, I think the point you made about the company file is super important here. I think anybody that uses Webgility or that uses QuickBooks can attest to the we'll say latency that comes with a large company file. I mean, even if you have a small company file, QuickBooks can hang up pretty easily depending on your computer too. So, the more you can sort of streamline QuickBooks to run efficiently, the better your business is going to run at the end of the day. That doesn't mean that you should consolidate your orders just right off the bat. Yeah, I think it's important to note that if you're looking for fidelity, if you're looking for granularity in your accounting and you want to be able to track inventory and track all of the things that come with the order in the order data, so customers, inventory data, the granularity of the fees and everything that is posted on the order separately. Single orders are always going to be the king here, right? With group or consolidated posting, you're losing that fidelity, you're losing the segmentation, but again, you gain the efficiency, right? So that's why when it comes to we mentioned like it's useful for high volume, low value orders. If you have a catalog that sells a lot of the same item, you might not care about the granularity necessarily. So just a couple things to consider. It doesn't mean that you should use one or the other in every single case. There is a lot of nuance to the conversation of how you should, work your accounting flow when it comes to batch posting or single order posting. But the easy and the long and short of it is again, yeah, single posting is for that granularity, that detail. Group posting is if you want efficiency, if you want things to run a little bit smoother, and you don't care about like, again, inventory tracking or that segmentation across your data. Class tracking. So speaking of segmentation, in WebGility, class tracking can be enabled. So that means that when you post a transaction, it'll pull over that QuickBooks class for reporting. So I'm sure most of you are using in QuickBooks using transaction classes, and they are very useful. When it comes to how that works with WebGility, it makes it a lot easier to segment performance by channel. So you can have your class set up as Amazon, Shopify, or Walmart, and check the performance a lot easier that way. There is another way that we recommend segmenting by channels as well that we'll get into in just a moment. But for classes, generally the easiest explanation for how we recommend using them, specifically to those channel sort of mappings, is that class sort of helps you understand which channel makes money, right? So you don't have to create separate companies or accounts to be able to track which of your channels is making money if you assign them to a class. So you can see that channel profitability in QuickBooks reporting a lot more natively. So small thing, but it is sort of a shortcut to understanding the profitability if you're trying to look at it directly in QuickBooks from what's posted through Webgility.
Classes are very useful when business owners have multiple channels that they sell onto. I have set up classes when a client have multiple stores, Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Walmart, so that they get the information in their QuickBooks that how much they are selling on which store. So essentially, the reporting gets easier, and they are able to make important business decisions based on those reportings that it
Absolutely.
actually is able to, which actually is visible only because we are using classes.
Yeah, and that's something that, if you've been on our e-commerce clinic webinar that I do every Thursday, shout out e-commerce clinic. That is something I talk about pretty ad nauseum, right? I talk about the ability to understand where your profitability is at across your channels. So having, even if you're using classes and what we're going to talk about here, deposit accounts, clearing accounts, you're able to get as much information out of your data as possible. So, while we're talking about different ways essentially to get sort of the same information in a lot of ways, understand that doing all of these together helps you sort of splice your data in ways that you need to. It makes your data more malleable. You can essentially, drill down on the parts of your business that you want to understand on a profitability level, on just like a success level,
Hmm.
and make the decisions that you need to, whether it be scaling back or doubling down, all those different options that you have as a business. So, yeah, if you want to cover the clearing versus undeposited funds dilemma.
Yes. Speaking of this, these both of them are, essentially the holding accounts, but
Mhm.
their purpose and utility changes the meaning entirely. So when I speak about clearing accounts, it's a temporary holding bank account to match the payment, fees, and settlement before the net amount hits the bank. In most of the configuration that I have done for my clients, when setting up them for Shopify or Amazon account, I always advise and recommend them to set up a new and a different clearing account. Because when, let's say they made a sale today, they would not be receiving the amount at the time of sale, right? That would be a part of the payout that would be received. If it's in case of Shopify, they would receive it 2 to 3 days delay. And when we talk about Amazon, they would be receiving the payment 15 days later on. So whenever we receive the payouts or settlement report, we get the clarity that, okay, the total amount is being reflected in your bank account, but inside of the payout, we get the detailed information that what are the payments, what are the fees, and other expenses. Until then, what we do is we post the orders and put that due amount in the clearing account. And once we receive the payment and the fees, we are able to balance out and do the reconciliation straight away from the clearing account. So that is where the clearing accounts comes in handy. And speaking of the undeposited funds, it is best when you want QuickBooks to behave like cash register, essentially. So the only difference when I use undeposited funds is when I do not get the refunds or fees adjustment details.
Mhm.
So for the orders that comes in on Shopify via other payment merchant gateways, I transfer those funds to undeposited funds account, and for the ones which we receive the details of the fees and expenses, which is Shopify merchant gateway, which is again a part of Shopify payout, those funds get redirected to clearing accounts.
Yeah, yeah, definitely important to talk about the fact that undeposited funds can function essentially like a clearing account if you don't have a lot of complexity in your accounting workflow already. Like if all you're doing is using a Shopify and that's you don't have like a retail presence or anything that might filter into your QuickBooks outside of Shopify, right? Undeposited funds is probably going to be okay, right? But the problem is a lot of businesses, especially businesses that like had a presence prior to expanding into e-commerce, sort of use undeposited funds as like a dumping ground, right? It's easy to put everything there that you don't have, a place for already because it sort of acts like that, right? It's something that you can put in any random transaction, right? It doesn't have to come from anywhere specific. Whereas clearing accounts, they're sort of made specifically to purpose on your e-commerce segmentation, right? So if I know Arun just mentioned on the last slide, classes working better when you have more channels that you sell on. So if you're selling on Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, eBay, right? Clearing accounts get even more useful as you scale because while you can only have one undeposited funds account, it's sort of the one trash can. You can set up as many clearing accounts as you want because you're just effectively making a dummy bank account that you're putting things in, like Arun said, until they need to be posted. So with Amazon, you've got that settlement period of 14 days, and then even now there's the what is it, the DD plus 7 policy that they just implemented that makes some things even further out, right? So some payments might not get to you for a full, month. Um, so what I want to like sort of point out here is that clearing accounts just give you more segmentation. So where classes do the same thing, clearing accounts give you a place to put fees. If you want to do just a clearing account specific to Amazon fees, you can set up a clearing account for Amazon fees, and all the fees you can just have routed directly to that clearing account. And then you can have everything that is not related to fees go to its own regular Amazon clearing account. So you can get as granular as you want, and that means that when you're looking for things maybe that don't match, if you're trying to reconcile at the end of the month and there's some mismatch, it's a lot easier to find when you have things segmented out that way rather than everything routing to undeposited funds, where if something doesn't match, you're digging through a lot more information that you probably could have, easily sifted through if you had the sort of framework for it. So, yeah, clearing accounts are, I guess, purpose built for e-commerce in the way that e-commerce just has so many different paths where money comes from and money changes hands. Whereas a cash register, right, it's very straightforward. So that's why undeposited funds works for cash register. But if you're trying to scale beyond that, it's advisable to set up a clearing account workflow where everything has its own place and you can get to everything within just a couple clicks without having to sift through a bunch of garbage information, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Yeah, and then for customer types, we don't have to spend too much time on this because I think it's pretty straightforward. But Webgility supports matching customers from the store to QuickBooks. It's very similar in the way that we match um, the transaction level details with SKUs. So you basically tell Webgility, hey, I want to look for the email, the first name and last name on order information to find that customer. If it doesn't find the customer, you can have a workflow. There's a note here at the bottom that says, if it can't find that customer, create a new customer, or use something like a standard customer. Standard customers have it's basically a catch-all, is the way that I would explain it. Some workflows might essentially require that you use a standard customer, or in the same sort of line of thinking that we used for uh, like group posting or single transaction posting, you might opt for a standard customer because you don't care about that customer information, right? You just want everything to go to, a bucket where you don't have to worry about your company file getting bloated. You don't have to worry about customer information. If it's all handled on, Shopify or Amazon, you don't need to worry about that. And when I say Amazon, the standard customer is specifically applicable to Amazon because they do not give you accurate customer information in the orders and settlements. They're giving you basically placeholder information that doesn't actually tell you anything. So for Amazon specifically, we recommend mapping everything to a standard customer because it's all going to look the same. It's all not going to really be super meaningful from like a customer to customer basis. So setting up a standard customer means that all those orders get routed directly to that customer, which gives you another layer of granularity. If you needed to, find all Amazon orders, you can sort by that standard customer as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can skin that data. Um, sort of again similarly to the single versus group posting, individual customers give you that precision, that granularity. Standard gives you that speed, simplicity. You don't have to worry about it, right? Anything you want to add there, Arun?
No, absolutely. You were right on that Amazon part. And for most part of my interaction, I have enabled this standard customers only for mostly for Amazon and when the customer is preferring to post all of the orders in a group.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I guess another thing to call out based on the note here is that if you do have group posting enabled, consolidated order posting, it will automatically change your customer mapping or matching to that standard customer as well. So it sort of follows that same logic like we talked about. All
Yeah,
right. So this is the part where we generally do a Q&A, but before we jump into the Q&A, I wanted to give Arun a minute to demo some of these concepts, show you where each of these features lives inside of Webgility. This is especially useful if you're watching this back and want to, see everything in Webgility at one time rather than having to sort of sift through the recording. So I will end my screen share and let Arun share his, and then yeah, we'll cover a couple of the concepts in Webgility, where to find them, and what the settings do, and then we can get to
absolutely.
the Q&A.
John, let me know if my screen is visible now.
You're good to go.
All right. So I'm right now inside of the QuickBooks, and let's go topic by topic. First, we were talked about the orders, how the orders can be posted in different format. So if you could see, we have three options. We talked about sales order. I can go ahead and click this to create a sales order. Just a minute. QuickBooks sometimes get laggy. We already covered that part. All right, so sales order would essentially look like this. You can change a bit of it by changing the template from this. And we talked about classes. I have set up one Shopify class and the other classes can also be added. I'll quickly show from where the classes can be added. But for the sake of it, let's say I've received an order and I wanted to create a sales order. So I'll select the class as Shopify and have multiple customers that can be selected. But if in case I just want to post all my sales under one customer, I can use one default customer as well. That could go by the name Shopify customer just for my references. And yeah, I can just enter the details and this is how I can create a sales order. Just save and close. Just hang on a minute, please.
And this is what we were talking about with QuickBooks, sort of being uncooperative, even if it is a small company file. So.
It is. I think I might need to restart it. It is giving some errors, but it's okay. In the meantime, let me just quickly show you how we can how Webgility enables you to post the orders differently in your QuickBooks.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, changing the order type inside of Webgility, you're gonna get
Yes.
generally like three options, right? So when we talked about estimates and stuff like that, those aren't going to flow through Webgility. So you'll see, sales receipt, invoice, and
Invoices
and
and then
those
sales.
and sales order, yeah, specifically in Webgility, but you won't see those other options.
So we have this option. We can post the orders in these format: invoices, sales receipt, and orders. These are the main three type that I have used actually with my customers. Rarely any case where we post them as estimates, but most of the accepted or inculcated in the workflow is invoices or sales receipt. And then this is from where we can create multiple different type of orders. And again, when we set up your Webgility with the best recommended workflow, your order would be posted as invoices. And when we post invoices as a part of your workflow, if you are currently posting the invoices or creating the invoices, once you create the invoice, it's unpaid. And from here, you would do the payment collection. So let's say you have received 10 orders on a day, you would have to collect the payments for 10 different orders individually. So Webgility comes in handy and reduce or eliminates this manual step entirely. It can collect the payment the moment we receive the payouts. So then you don't have to do the extra manual work. All right. And then we were talking about single versus group. There's nothing much we can show on this call until we have a lot of orders that can be posted. But just wanted to show that, we do have the option to post the orders individually or in the group. So when we post the order in the group, we have multiple options. We can group them by daily, weekly, or monthly orders that we receive. And the fourth one is also a manually. So if your business workflow is a lot of customized and you happen to do a grouping by manually, we also have that option. Um, then I will quickly tell you about classes. For most of my customers, I have observed that they have not been using classes, and I can quickly show you how from where you can enable the option. So when you go to edit preferences, and just a moment. Oh, yes. There are so many options. Even I get sometimes confused.
Same.
So generally, we would have to, turn this setting on first. Otherwise, it would not show where the classes exist, right? So what we basically need to do is we need to turn the classes on from the settings. Um, Let me just give it one settings. Not here. But once you enable it from the preferences, you can see it would enable the class list. And once you open this class list, it will show you the existing ones. And if you happen to create a new one, you can go from here and let's create a new class for, let's say, Amazon. I create this class and let's go back to our home. You remember when I tried creating the order, I was seeing only Shopify and then store 123. Under this option, we'll now see Amazon popping up. Now, where this comes in handy is when we are doing or pulling up the reports. So let's go to company and financials. And if you see, we can also pull the profit and loss report by classes. So
Yeah,
this
so
is
with just
the
a couple clicks, you're getting a report that breaks it down by your sales channel, which is super nice.
correct. Yeah, this is the most useful place where classes comes in handy. And the last would be about managing the customers, going to the customer center. This is the place where you can choose to create all those customers individually, or we can create one customer that can be used to store all of the order details. So for example, I've created one default customer for US, Amazon. So it will be holding all the order details coming in from US account. Yeah. So that's all pretty
Perfect.
much that I wanted to share with you guys. There's again a lot of details to it that we can cover, but it would take us, a dedicated session for that.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we have, a sort of a fast and loose plan for what we want to cover in these topics. Generally, like a month in advance, we have a whole set of sessions planned. But for those of you that are attending, or even those that are watching this back, if you feel like there's a specific topic that you want to see covered, something in Webgility specifically, maybe there's like a set of errors that you run into or something that you want to understand how WebGility functions, feel free to let us know. We're happy to work that into our existing sort of curriculum for these sessions. Ultimately, these sessions are made for you as a customer. We want to make sure that you have all the data that you need to be able to use WebGility efficiently, and to get the most out of it, right? So, any suggestions that you have, any feedback that you have for us, I am totally happy to take that into account and make sure that we're adjusting the sessions going forward. I am trying to make the experience a lot better for customers. So again, you might see that the landing page has changed. You'll see future sessions there listed towards the bottom of the page. I'm also going to enable, sort of similar to our ecom clinic. Again, shout out the ecom clinic. I'm going to enable a checkbox at the bottom of the form so that you can sign up for all future sessions of this office hours. So that way, if you maybe you don't want to have to go sign up every single week. Generally, what I do in that situation is I send out an email to people that are registered for life essentially and just tell you what the session is going to be that week, and then you can attend. You'll already have the link if you do want to attend. Otherwise, you'll just get the link for the next one, and you can only attend the ones that you essentially want to attend. But that way, you don't have to worry about registering every single week or missing an email or something like that. You'll just have the link every single time. So, I appreciate you guys joining. Thank you, Arun. I know this was your first one. You did amazing. Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out directly to our team, either through the online chat. You can call us directly. We'll schedule a call with you to answer any questions you have, fix any problems you might have. That is what we're here for. So, appreciate you guys, and hope to see you on the next one. These are bi-weekly. I know they've been sort of sporadic for the past couple months. With the new quarter, we've just been planning, moving stuff around. So you'll get a link to register for the next one, not next week, but the following week on Monday. So everybody enjoy the rest of your week and have a good weekend.